Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Last class, we started off with drive systems, which is the third unit in our curriculum. As we discussed yesterday, we are going to study electric drives, some hydraulic drives, and some pneumatic drives as well. So we started with electric drives. Out of the three options, we saw some of the solenoids, some of the switches, some of the relays, which are not exactly in our curriculum, but those are also part of electric drives. Today, we'll discuss about some electrical motors. We have already studied the principles of electric motors in the earlier classes. We'll just brush up faster. A broader classification of the electric motors, as you can see on the screen. These are classified broadly into AC motors and DC motors. AC motors are further classified into induction motors and synchronous motors, whereas DC motors are classified into brushed DC motor and brushless DC motors. So apart from this, we'll be studying some servo motors, we'll be studying some stepper motors as well. To begin with, we have, as we have seen in DC, we'll be starting off with DC motors. These are classified into brushed motor and brushless motor. We'll start with brushed motor principles. Brushed motors or brush type DC motors, as the name indicates, these DC motors use brushes, graphite or carbon conducting brushes. So they are called as brushed motors or brush type DC motors. As constructionally, you can see you have the stator having a permanent magnet having a north pole and a south pole. It's a stator. It's a stator, or we can say a field coil having either one pair of poles or two pair of poles or number of pairs of poles. So we have a permanent magnet as the stator, and the rotor, as you can see, has got a commutator, a slip ring commutator. Slip ring commutator is a slotted type of a commutator, and these are the brushes through which the supply voltage is given to the rotor coils. Now this is a single coil that is shown here. Single coil on the rotor. Now this is also called as armature. So this is a single conductor. Like that, if you see here, I'll be having number of conductors on the armature. So they'll be forming, so to say, a loop, starting from this end and then forming a loop and coming back. Starting from this end, forming a loop and coming back from this end. Starting, forming a loop and then coming back. Okay. So this is how number of loops are used on the rotor windings. Okay. So this is a current carrying conductor. As the supply voltage is given to the armature, this becomes a current carrying conductor. Okay. Now this current carrying conductor has a it sets up its own magnetic field as well, whereas the stator windings develop a magnetic field of flux density V. The current carrying conductor is carrying current I, so I is flowing through this, and it interrupts your the magnetic flux lines set up by the stator. Now, what Faraday's law says, when a current carrying conductor interrupts a magnetic field, an electromotive force is developed on the conductor. So this electromotive force makes this armature coil to rotate. Let us try to clarify this a bit. So this is a slip ring commutator. A sectional view is shown here. A single coil is shown here. You have a north pole, South pole. This is a permanent magnet on the stator, and this is the armature through which current is flowing. I current is flowing through this armature, and this is a commutator, split ring commutator, and these are the brushes through which the voltage is supplied. So this is the magnetic flux density B. Let us see further. Okay, so look, be attentive when the armature single coil, current is flowing through this coil, and B is the width of the coil, let us say, and F is the force, that is the electromotive force that is developed. Now this electromotive force is the product of, L is the inductance of the coil. L is the inductance, the magnetic field generating capacity, let us say. So this is the L is the inductance. So F is the force which develops a couple on the coil. We are talking about DC motor, remember friends, brush type DC motor. So it should start rotating on its own, isn't it? So when your current carrying conductor interrupts this magnetic field, an electromotive force is developed on the coil, and like that I have got number of coils, and these forces, electromotive forces, at a distance B, then I have a lever arm, so to say. So this F into B is the torque that is developed on the coil. So this happens with each of the coils, and because of this torque, the motor starts rotating. So how much is this electromotive force? Consider a permanent magnet DC motor, the permanent magnet giving a constant value of flux density B. For an armature conductor of length L carrying current I, the force, the electromotive force resulting from a magnetic flux density B at right angles to the conductor. So this is at right angles to the conductor. This is the conductor line. At right angles, one is upwards, one is downwards. At right angles to the conductor C is F is equal to magnetic flux density B into current I into inductance. Sorry, length L. Length L, BI into L. Sorry, L is the length of the conductor. So BI into L is the electromotive force that is developed on the coil. Now the forces result in a torque T about the coil axis of F into B. As we have seen, F into B will be the torque that is developed on the coil. F into B, B being the breadth of the coil. Thus the torque on armature turn, single armature turn, T is BIL into width B. So BBLI. BIL is the force, electromotive force, into width B. So BIL into small b gives me the torque that is developed on this single turn of the armature coil. So likewise, I have got number of armature turns or coils. So these will develop torque and the motor starts rotating. So this is the brush type DC motor because the supply voltage is given. Supply voltage is given through brushes, carbon brushes, conducting brushes. That's why they are called as brush type DC motors. And let us see the characteristics. So this is what we discussed just now. The electromotive force is F with the breadth of the coil as B. F into B is the torque that is developed on the coil. Well, let us see the equivalent circuit for this rotor winding and stator winding. Okay. So this is the supply voltage V that I am applying. This is the supply voltage V that I am applying. So the conductor, the current carrying conductor will have some resistance. These are normally of copper wires. These copper wires will have the resistance of its own. It is modeled and shown as R, equivalent resistance R, and L is the inductance of the current carrying conductor. The same conductor will have a resistance property. The same conductor will have inductive properties as well. What is resistance? Resistance is resistance to the flow of current, which is given in ohms, and L is the magnetic field generating capacity, that is called as inductance L. and the unit is Henry, isn't it? So the same current carrying conductor will have a resistance property and the magnetic field generating property, that is inductance property. Those are shown. This is a symbolic representation. This is the resistance R, or I can show zigzag lines as the resistance R and coil type as L. And then this current is going, the current flowing I is going through the brushes. Through the brushes, it is going to the armature. And as the electromotive force is developed, the current starts flowing, tends to flow in the opposite direction, so to say, and it develops a back EMF, so to say. Okay, this is represented by VB, back EMF of the rotor or the motor. And these are the torque speed or speed torque characteristics of the brush type DC motors. So why these are important? Because these help us in selection of this motor for my particular application. So based on my requirement, suppose I have a gripper which is driven by a DC motor, and I have got the gripper opening and closing by maybe by using a lead screw mechanism. Lead screw, as in the lathe, you must be knowing lathe. You have a lead screw, so there is a nut and there is a screw. When the motor rotates, the screw rotates, and let us say I have a mechanism which helps me opening and closing of the jaws of the gripper by using a lead screw mechanism. So for gripping a certain part in the gripper arms, depending on the weight of the object and the frictional property of the surface of the object, I'll be having the gripping force requirement. Now the gripping force will be translated into the gripping torque on the motor. Now how much gripping force is required so that the part is properly gripped, and how much is the gripping torque that is required so that it will remain in that position. Okay, so that gripping torque requirement, once it is defined, I can select appropriate motors, appropriate DC motor, which will be able to generate that much torque. So this is one application. There can be another application, maybe a CNC machine wherein the lead screw, the same lead screw, it decides the position of the tool movement, let us say. There also, I'll be having some reactive force that is coming from the tool onto the tool post, and from the tool post to the nut of the lead screw. And the lead screw is coupled with my, the lead nut is coupled with my lead screw, and the lead screw is driven by a DC motor. So once again, there also I require the definition of how much torque is required so that I can have the movement of tool post, so to say. So these characteristics help me at what speed, at what rotational speed of the motor, how much is the torque that is developed. At higher speed, how much is the torque? At lower speed, how much is the torque? So appropriately, I can make, I can select appropriate motor based on my speed torque characteristics. For different supply voltages, I'll be having different speed torque curves for a given DC motor. Now these characteristics are provided normally by the manufacturers of the motors. So manufacturers provide us the catalog of the specifications of these motors, and based on my requirements, I'll be selecting appropriate motors. So these are the characteristics we should know for this brush type DC motor. Now let us see the types of brush type DC motors. First is series wound. Okay, the field coil is in series with armature winding. So this is called as series wound DC motor. The second one is shunt wound DC motor. We are talking about different types of brush type DC motor. So the field coil is in parallel with the armature coil. Whereas in series, the field coil is in series with the armature coil. In shunt type or shunt wound DC motors, I have the field coil which is in parallel with armature coil. And whereas in a compound DC motor, I have both one series field coil and one shunt field coil. So this is called as compound wound DC motor. Okay, so all the three, and there is a fourth type, that is a separately excited or separately wound DC motor. So the field coil has the power supply, separate power supply. Whereas in these three types, series, shunt, and compound type, the same power supply is shared by the armature as well as field coils. So this is called as a separately wound DC motor. So the field coil has a separate supply and the armature coil has a separate supply. Now each of these types has relative benefits. So as I said earlier, based on my requirement, I'll be selecting either a series motor, a shunt motor, a compound wound motor, or a separately excited motor. It also depends on what type of control you want to have on your motor. Whether I want to have precise control, whether a gross or a coarse control is sufficient. So based on my requirements, I'll be selecting appropriate type of brush type DC motor for my application. Once again, speed torque characteristics, as you can see, the shunt motor shows let us say a steep speed torque characteristics. What does it mean? I have got a very small range of speed available. So in that small range of speed, I can have maximum torque developed or minimum torque developed. So where I want in a short speed band, I want highest or maximum torque, then I can go in for my shunt wound motor. And the speed range that I want is very limited. So their shunt wound motors will be of use. Whereas in series wound and compound wound, as you can see, the speed torque curve has got maybe hyperbolic decrement or maybe a parabolic, not parabolic, it's a hyperbolic decrement. And I have got a broad band of range over which a broad band of range of speeds over which the torque gradually decreases. Here in shunt wound motors, the torque suddenly decreases, which might suit some of the requirements, and these series and compound wound might suit. There is nothing like good motor and bad motor. Depending on my requirements, these properties can be utilized and appropriate motor can be selected for my application. So these are the types of brush type DC motors. Let us briefly see what are the advantages and limitations of brushed DC motors. The design of the brushed DC motor is quite simple. This is the advantage of, so construction wise, these are simple. Controlling the speed of a brush type DC motor is easy. So brushed DC motor speed can be controlled very easily, and moreover it is very cost effective as well. There are few limitations of brush type DC motors as well. As the brushes are there, the wear and tear of the brushes will be there, so maintenance will always be higher. So this is one of the limitations. The performance decreases with dust particles. See, because of the erosion of the brushes, the carbon particles will stay within the motor. So these dust particles plus these carbon particles will affect the magnetic field generating capacity of the motor. So the performance decreases with dust particles. This is one more limitation of brushed DC motor. Less reliable in control at lower speed. At lower speeds, we cannot execute appropriate control of this brush type DC motors. At higher speeds, you can control the speed effectively, but these are less reliable in control at lower speeds. And finally, the brushes wear off with usage. So frequently, we need to change the brushes frequently. Otherwise, I'll not get appropriate functioning of this brush type DC motors. Let us see the brushless type of permanent magnet DC motors. The earlier one, the brush type, is also permanent magnet type of DC motor only. So PMDC, permanent magnet DC motors, this is brushless type. And as the name indicates, unlike here, we had the brushes for supply to the armature. So in brushless type DC motors, I'll not be having brushes on the rotor, so to say. So this is the typical construction of a brushless type of a DC motors, permanent magnet DC motors. So I have, if we compare the brush type DC motors with brushless type, the armature which is supplied with the voltage and it has got a coil. The windings are there on the coil of the armature. Now the roles are totally changed now. And in a brush type DC motor, the stator was in the form of permanent magnets, isn't it? The stator was permanent magnet, whereas rotor was having a coil winding. Okay. In brushless type, the role is reversed, as I said. The rotor is a permanent magnet now, which has got a north pole and south pole. And the role of the armature coils is taken up by the stator in brushless type DC motors, as you can see. So A1, A2 is one pair of windings, B1, B2 is the second pair of windings, and C1, C2 is the third pair of windings of the stator. And I have got a rotor which has a permanent magnet, which has got a north pole and south. So the construction wise, brushless type and brush type are exactly opposite in construction. The brushless DC motor has a rotor with permanent magnets. The brushless DC motor has a rotor with permanent magnets and a stator with windings. The rotor can be of ceramic permanent magnet type. The rotor can be of ceramic permanent magnet type. The brushes and commutator are eliminated. The brushes and commutator are eliminated and the windings are connected to the control electronics. The windings are connected to the control electronics directly. The control electronics replaces the commutator and brushes and energizes the stator sequentially. So how it was working, the brush type DC motor, I had the stator permanent magnets were setting up the magnetic field and the current carrying conductor, as it used to interrupt the magnetic field, the electromotive force was developed. It was developing a torque and the rotor was rotating. Here, I've got a permanent magnet as a rotor. What I'm doing is, I am providing and energizing the stator windings sequentially. So A1, A2 first, B1, B2 second, C1, C2 next. So what I'm doing indirectly, I'm developing a rotating field, so to say. And because of this rotating field, this permanent magnet rotor also rotates along with this rotating field. And the rotor starts rotating, right? So the brushes and so the control electronics replaces the commutator and brushes and energizes the rotor, energizes the stator sequentially. Here the conductor is fixed and the magnet moves, the rotor moves. The current supplied to the stator is based on the position of the rotor. The current supplied to the stator is based on the position of the rotor. It is switched in sequence using transistor. We'll see the circuit briefly in the next slide. It is switched in sequence using transistors. The position of the rotor is sensed. The position of the rotor is sensed by Hall effect sensor. We have studied Hall effect sensors during the first unit study of sensors and transducers. The position of the rotor is sensed by Hall effect sensors. Thus, a continuous rotation is obtained. So let us briefly see. The problem with DC motors is that they require brushed DC motors is that they require a commutator and a commutator in order to periodically reverse the current through each armature coil. The brushes make sliding contact with the commutator, and as a consequence, sparks jump between the brushes and the commutator. Sparking is there between the two, and they suffer wear and tear. Brushes thus have to be periodically changed and the commutator resurfaced, because these carbon brushes develop, so to say, a coating on the commutator, isn't it? So we need to use a polished paper to brush off those carbon particles deposited on the commutator. So the commutator is needed to be resurfaced or cleaned. To avoid such problems, brushless motors are designed which consist of a sequence of rotator coils and a permanent magnet rotor. A current carrying conductor in a magnetic field experiences a force, and as a consequence of Newton's third law of motion, that is action and reaction, the magnet rotor will also experience an equivalent opposite force. The stator is developing, so to say, a sequential or rotating magnetic field, and that magnetic field is developing electromotive force. So the magnets experience equivalent opposite force on them. With the conventional, and that's how the rotor starts rotating. With the conventional DC motor, the magnet is, with the conventional, that means brush DC motor, the magnet is fixed. In brush DC motor, the magnet is fixed, that is a stator magnet, and the current carrying conductors are made to move. Whereas in brushless type, the magnets are rotating, the rotor is rotating, and I am providing the current carrying conductors on the stator. With the brushless permanent magnet DC motor, the reverse is the case. The current carrying conductors are fixed as the stator, and the magnet moves as a rotor. This we already see. The rotor is a ferrite or ceramic permanent magnet. The current to the stator coils is electronically switched by transistors in sequence around the coils. The switching being controlled by the position of the rotor, so that there are always forces acting on the magnet, causing it to rotate in the same direction. Hall sensors are generally used to sense the position of the rotor and initiate the switching by the transistors. The sensors being positioned around the stator, the Hall effect transducers sense the position, whether it is the rotor is at 0 degree, 15 degree, 30 degree, those angular position can be sensed by using Hall effect transducers. To switch the coils in sequence, we need to supply signals to switch the transistors on in the right sequence. This is provided by the outputs from the three sensors, Hall effect sensors, operating through a decoder circuit to give the appropriate base currents. Let us quickly see the circuitry. As you can see, this is the rotor, and I have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 as, let us say, so to say, rotating magnetic field. And I have got, so these are the coil A, this is coil A, coil B. Let us focus here, coil B, this is coil B, this is coil B, and this is coil C. This is coil C. So this is coil C. You can say C1, C2, B1, B2, A1, A2, or A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, C plus, C minus, whatever way you want to name it. Okay. So I have got Hall effect sensors, sensor A, sensor B, and sensor C around the stator. Okay. So they help me out in deciding the location of the rotor, at what angular position it is, and accordingly what it needs to do, it needs to energize the stator coils in sequence. Okay, so how that energization is done? So by using the transistors are used as switching circuits. Okay, the transistors are used as switching circuits. Okay. So this Hall effect sensor will send signal to these transistors, so that coil A plus, B minus, C plus, C minus, those will be energized. depending on the angular positions. So these transistors help you in switching the windings A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2. So these are energized in such a sequence that a continuous torque is developed on the rotor. Just as an example, the switching sequence example is given here. If the rotor position is 0 degree, as sensed by the sensor C, Hall effect sensor, so it will send a signal 1. It can send signal either 1 or 0. So it sends a signal 1. So transistors A plus and B minus are energized. A plus and B minus are energized. And accordingly, the torque is developed on the rotor. When it is at 60 degree, the sensor B and sensor C will send out the signal 1, 1, that is on. And accordingly, A plus and C minus will be energized. So accordingly, for different angular positions, different sensors, Hall effect sensors will be generating appropriate signals, and accordingly, the windings A1 or A plus, A1, A2, or you can call it as A1, A minus, B1, B1, B2, or B plus, B minus, C1, C2, or C plus, C minus can be energized, and these brushless type permanent magnet DC motors can generate the required torque. Let us quickly see the advantages and limitations of these brushless type DC motors. So brushless type DC motors more precise due to computer control, because I can have digital control over the angular positions. More efficient, no sparking due to absence of brushes, less electrical noise, no brushes to wear out. Electromagnets are situated on the stator, hence easy to cool, because the electromagnets tend to heat up because of magnetizing current. So because they are on the periphery, those can be cooled up very easily. Motor can operate at speeds about 10,000 RPM under loaded and unloaded conditions. A big advantage. Responsiveness and quick acceleration due to low rotor inertia. Responsiveness and quick acceleration due to low rotor inertia. Right? The rotor contains only magnet, it doesn't have any windings as such. So the weight is less and hence the inertia is less. So there is a quick response from the brushless DC motors. So limitations are there. It has got higher initial cost. These are complex due to presence of computer controller, bit complex. Brushless DC motors also requires additional system wiring in order to power the electronic commutation circuitry. So additional power requirement is there. But the advantages of brushless DC motors are more. So these are more preferred in precision applications. I think, friends, we shall stop for today.